Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earthing Live, where we're joined every Monday by Clint Ober and other earthing experts to answer your questions live on air. We will be beginning in just a few minutes here. Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I just want to issue this quick reminder that all information contained within this video and within our website is not presented as intended to be medical advice. And if you are suffering from any serious medical conditions, please to consult with your health professional first. Everyone, and welcome to Earthing Live. My name is Charlie Frank, and I will be your host for the hours we speak with Clint Ober. If you do have any general customer service questions, such as tracking your order or how to place an order with us, you can reach out to our fantastic customer service team at help@earthing.com. There's another quick reminder that we do get a lot of questions coming in for these Q&A sessions, and we unfortunately are not able to get to all of them, but we do get to as many as we can. We do like to get to those on a first come, first served basis, so make sure to ask your questions early. We'll do our best to get to them as quickly as we can. All right, I would now like to introduce Mr. Clint Ober. He is our founder and CEO here at earthing.com, and about 25 years ago, he discovered that grounding the human body can improve how we feel. Since then, he has worked tirelessly to research the effects of grounding and to develop earthing products. He's continuously working to improve the safety, longevity, and comfort of all of our products, as well as working to develop new products at the same time. He has made it his life's mission to educate as many people on this planet as he can about the benefits of grounding and why every living organism needs to be reconnected with our Earth. He is the co-author of the book Earthing and has been featured in documentaries and about grounding and earthing all around as well. Welcome, Clint.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah, man.
All right, looks like we
ready to go.
Already kicking off with a few questions here. So we will take our first question from right here on Zoom from our friend Loretta. Loretta lets us know that she is building a house and would like to know what would be the best type of materials to use for flooring with regards to building a grounded home.
Okay, this is a pretty common question. And personally, from my own experience, I would recommend polished concrete. Rather than put any flooring in, just polish your concrete and seal it with a water-based sealer. You can also stain it, and you can have some pretty fancy stains on it also, and patterns and so on. That's becoming quite popular in some of the new high-end homes and offices. The next best thing would be to check out the electrostatic discharge industry, ESD, and look for anti-static carpeting or flooring. They have dozens of different kinds of flooring. It comes just like regular carpeting, and it contains a lot of carbon. And then they ground the carpet so that when you walk across the carpet, you don't have any static electricity, but most of all, it's grounded, so you can walk barefoot and so on. A lot of people don't like carpet, and then the polymer-based flooring. There's a dozen different kinds of it, but there's quite a bit of that on the market. Other than that, to use a stone, like a saltillo tile, like a Mexican saltillo tile, and again, use water-based sealers on it and use cement grout. If you put plastic grout between the tile and the concrete, then it's kind of insulated. So, and you can use some various types of stone. I can't pull them all down off the top of my head right now, but there's a variety of stone that works really well. Glass tiles do not work, that are baked tiles. But anything that's stone, use a cement grout. That's what I have to offer today.
I did have a quick follow-up on that same question. Just wondering if the floor would still be grounded if it is on top of the crawl space.
No. I'm thinking of a California, typical home that has it's a slab-based home. If you have a crawl space, then you have no option but to go with the grounded carpets, the anti-static carpets, and the anti-static flooring. There is some conductive flooring, but it doesn't have quite the variety that the anti-static does, but the anti-static does work pretty effectively for grounding a floor.
Absolutely. All right, and then moving over to actually a question that we have from Facebook. This is coming from Amanda. Amanda is asking if earthing can help children with epilepsy. Do we have any information on that?
I don't have specific information on that, but I can share some information regarding petit mal seizures and similar things that we have quite a bit of experience in grounding children who have, I'll just limit it to the petit mal seizures. But anyhow, they'll come and go depending on, what's going on in their lives. But what we found is when we ground them, and we've grounded their beds, and it's helped improve their sleep. We've even gone as far as grounding the water in the bathtub when they're taking baths, because sometimes if the water's not grounded, then they can still have their seizures. And to give you an idea, if this one lady I can recall the quickest from down Laguna Beach had a child that was like 6 years old and had chronic petit mal seizures. And every time she'd go for a ride in a car, no matter what she did, there was always the possibility of having a series of events. So I told her, I said, next time this happens, just stop, pull the car over, and take shoes and socks off and put the child's feet directly on the earth, and that'll calm it down, and which it does. And and then I remember her telling me that as soon as she put her back in the car, put the socks and shoes back on, then the seizure started to come back. So grounding does have an effect as far as we know. And each case, I think, is a little bit different. And I would do some experimentation, even if it's just using, outdoor grounding in the yard. But I would experiment, and for sure, I think the grounding would help from my experience.
Absolutely. We do have our next question is coming here from Anne, joining us on Zoom, noting that the Zoom sessions are recorded and asking if they are available for replay. Yes, they are. You can find them on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and just type in earthing.com even, we will be the first channel to pop up there. Moving on from there, we do have our next question is from Dale. And Dale is asking, how well does a full mattress pad protect from EMF generated by a smart meter?
Well, EMF from a smart meter is the same frequency as a cell phone. So it's a very high frequency. And the grounding is not going to reduce the impact or reduce the effect of high frequency radiation. That includes cell phones or any smart meter, water meter, electric meter, and gas meters and so on, which are all now going that direction. Grounding itself will not help. The only thing you can do is put up null metal, which is extremely expensive, on the wall that's facing the meter. And then even then, it's like a pond. If you throw a rock in a pond and there's a stick 10 feet out, the ripple or the wave will go and the stick will block it, but it'll go around it and come back in. So you can't really block these signals. It's just really not practical to even think that. But anyhow, that's all I can really provide on that at the moment.
Absolutely. All right, and we do have another question here from Andy on Facebook. And Andy is asking if you can use earthing every day to help clear brain fog.
Well, depending on what's causing the brain fog. I don't know how to answer that for sure. But if you're sleeping grounded and you're getting a reasonable amount of nights, sleep, and you're eating well, then I would say the grounding would significantly improve your metabolism and clarity of thinking and so on. But the more grounding is, really good. It depends on the amount of time you're grounding. A lot of things, but it definitely will improve your circulation, your blood viscosity, and it will improve your metabolic processes. So for sure, it would help.
All right, so we have already taken questions from Zoom and from Facebook. Let's go ahead and move over to our friends on YouTube. This is coming from Raver4563, asking if they are making earthing boards using copper mesh, or just letting us know, and saying the only trouble that they're having is that they can get quite dirty very quickly. Wondering what they can use as a cover, but still receive earthing properties.
I'm not sure I understand that.
Yeah, trying to get to the bottom there. So if we do get a little more information about, the boards that you're using or exactly the application of that, we could probably get some more information for you on that.
Okay, but basically, if they're using a copper mesh, you can just put a regular sheet over the top of it.
So we can ground through that.
Yes, the body perspiration will saturate the sheet.
Absolutely. All right, our next question here is coming from Jo Marie Grover, asking if she can make her own grounded shoes or how to make her own grounded shoes at home.
Well, I've been working on that little project for 20 years, and I do ground my own shoes. It depends on the type of shoe you have. It's as simple as, taking a piece of copper wire and wrapping it around your shoe and putting part of it inside your shoe and part of it so it's touching the earth. There is, some conductive tapes that will do that. Most of them won't hold up very long. The copper wire is usually the best. And you can just take your shoe and put the copper wire inside the shoe and then go wrap it around so that it's touching the earth somewhere, and then bring it back up the other side and put it inside, and so that the copper is in there. So when your foot is in the shoe, it's on top of the carpet. You can actually tape it down partially inside so that not as wide as shoe, but just tape it down so it stays there. Or you can just make a loop that does it and so on. You just kind of have to play. You can drill a hole through your shoe and run the copper through that way and put about 2 inches of it on the bottom of the shoe, and then leave about 2 or 3 inches in the inside of the shoe. And so when you put your foot in there, then you walk, you're definitely grounded. A lot of golfers do that. But you just kind of have to be a little creative on your own there a little bit. How far do you want to go? Barefoot is best when you can. Yes.
I think that leads us really well into the next question here. We do have this coming from Christine here on Zoom, is asking if grounding with your shoes or through shoes, or I guess through any material, would be as beneficial as grounding with bare feet.
Well, first of all, if you're standing barefoot on the earth, then you have to know that you have more nerves in the bottom of your feet than you do any place else in your body, and quite similar in the hands. So when you're standing barefoot on the earth, and your body does absorb, mineral, moisture, all of that thing, all of those things. Anyhow, so barefoot to me is probably the best. You can't get around that. But if you have no option for barefoot or for bare sock grounding, then you really have to use a synthetic, conductive synthetic soled shoe. They have, like Reebok has the anti-static shoes. There are some other companies that do, but Reebok's the only one I've ever really followed. And they have, one that's called a soft toe. It's a very light shoe. It's kind of an athletic type looking shoe. It's good for hiking and so on. There are many different kinds of people, that have some form of a conductive shoe. I would say that they're all beneficial, more so than not being grounded. So that's where I would leave that at the moment. But do keep in mind, we are going to have a perfect flip-flop, grounded flip-flop, hopefully by early spring next year.
I know we're all really excited about the release for that one.
Yes.
Right. Our next question here does come from Anne. So this is actually with regards to the product tester. So Anne is wondering, assuming the products, that you're getting in are working at the time that you buy them, what would be, I guess the main reason to have a product tester around if, it is a fresh product right out the box and it would be assumed to be working?
Okay, so for sure, the product tester is to test the product. The biggest problem you're going to have with the your system as time goes on, the number one problem that we find is that an animal or a rabbit or a pet or something will eat through the wires. Cats, dogs don't bother them too much, but a lot of times the cats will eat through the wires. Or sometimes you'll have a wire go bad because it is copper, and if there's too much flex, then eventually over some period of time they can go bad. But the primary reason is for you to see that they're grounded and to test your wire and to test your system, that your system is grounded and working, whether it's a patch or a pillow or a unimat or a mattress panel. But occasionally you do want to check and make sure the working condition. The material in the newest material that we have for the carbon in the sleep mats, that's pretty much bulletproof. You should be able to pass that down to the next generation. Unfortunately, it lasts that long. But as far as the conductivity, but life and wear and tear, just normal things. People come and go. People, bed sizes change, all those kind of things. So, and things get passed around, passed down. But anyhow, it's just, you should be able to know whether you're earthed or not just without a meter. But it's always good to have that first knowledge to know and understand how it works.
Great device for peace of mind with the equipment. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll go ahead and move on to our next question here from Judy here on Zoom. Judy is letting us know she does have a brother who has a growth on his tongue. And so in order to work on treating that, wondering what products you think would be the most recommended for something like that, pillowcase or the patch, and also where to place it.
Well, the first thing I would recommend, if it's a growth, then I would recommend seeing a local doctor and get some information on it, try to understand what it is and what the cause of it is and what the normal treatment would be. Then as far as grounding goes, a pillow would be fine. The patches would be fine. The patches, you can put them on the hands or the back of, the chest or wherever you want. But grounding of any kind is going to be beneficial because everything with grounding is systemic. And keep in mind that your blood is one of the main carriers of ground, the electrons, and that your blood circulates once a minute throughout your entire system. So any kind of a good ground where you have good contact is going to be beneficial. If you have a particular, an acute situation, which this would be, then putting a patch or something similar near it is a shorter path to ground, should help solve the problem quicker. That's all.
Absolutely. All right, so we do have our next question here is coming from Charlotte over on Facebook. And so Charlotte did want to use their grounding mat while they sleep until she gets the mattress pad or another product. So I'm assuming it's the universal mat there that she's using at the time. Wondering if she should rest her feet on it while she sleeps for the best results for overall well-being. Doesn't have pain, just wants to have more restful sleep. So any other information that we have there?
I would say just putting it underneath the torso would probably be the easiest, because if it's on the feet, will be kicking it around. It'll be very challenging for you to keep your feet on the unimat all night long.
Absolutely. And then moving over to our viewers on YouTube, this question comes from Carla. Carla's wondering, would like to know if the pH has been measured before and after grounding, and if yes, if it is increased. So that I think it can be referring to a couple of different things there. There's a specific area where you're looking for the pH difference there, and you could comment that as well. I could definitely follow up, but Clint, I'm not sure if you have any information on that at the time.
pH, one of the first things that we learned, and when we first started testing grounding, the first thing we ever looked at was pH. And grounding will help to normalize pH. And I can share an interesting story on pH. Is grounding is about pH. I mean, it's about whether your body's, acid or alkaline, and that balance in between is like being well grounded. If you're an extreme or movement one way or the other, you're going to have adverse consequences. But anyhow, I was really surprised one time. We had a young lady who was, we had tested a lot of people with pH and seen remarkable results. And then we had this one girl who was fairly healthy, and she was doing everything right, but her pH was way off. And we couldn't figure it out. And it really puzzled us, and it caused us to, start looking at electrons more than pH alone. I love pH. I mean, that's really what we should be talking about. But electrons, it's all the same thing, actually. But anyhow, I come to find out about 6-7 months after we had tested this lady, we found out that at that time she was going through a divorce, and she was in a very elevated sympathetic state, meaning a fight or flight, and her cortisol was extremely elevated, and that's what threw her pH off. So as soon as she got settled down, then her pH did return to normal. But it's like in pH and anything else. Anytime you have a master hormone kickoff, then it's going to affect every hormone in the body. It's going to affect your pH. It's going to affect everything. So, but on the other hand, that's normal. In many cases, it's when it's chronically elevated and you don't do anything about it. That's when it starts creating inflammation and oxidation. So, but yes, it does help normalize and stabilize pH.
Absolutely. All right, we do have a question from Zoom here. This is a question from Michael N. And so Michael is, I know this is a common question that we do get as well, dealing with an issue with an enlarged prostate, but doesn't want to place it, I guess, directly on the area itself. Is wondering if it would be more effective on the lower abdomen or the thighs, as far as a recommendation for patch placement for that.
You just have to experiment. I would put it on the inner thigh or something where the blood flow is feeding the area.
Absolutely. All right, and this next question is coming from Linford here on Zoom. And Linford is actually given us some information here based on last week. Understands that in a plane, you can reduce static electricity in the body by placing the foot on the chair rails on the seat in front of you. But are you actually technically grounded, like in a car with a pad and a clip wire? And what about using the ground and the electric outlets between the seats? So I think this is a pretty multifaceted question about difference between grounding to the earth and grounding in a vehicle.
Okay, well, we're talking about an airplane, right?
Yes.
Okay, so your body weighs, let's say, 200 pounds, and the airplane weighs 20 tons or some amount of weight greater than the body. So basically, what happens in all metal in the plane is connected. I mean, there's no independent. I mean, it's all the chassis and everything is all interconnected. So there can be no static electricity or sparks or anything in the plane. So anyhow, when you're sitting on a plane in the seat, there's a small vibration at all times. And I've said before that. So when you're sitting on the seat, you know, the back of your is vibrating against the seat, and that creates tribocharging or static electricity, and that static electricity builds up on your body. So when you touch the plane, it'll say you have 5 volt, or you would have 1,000, 2,000 volts of static charge on your body in a plane. So when you touch the metal on the metal runner or the metal on the seat in front of you that's connected to the floor, then so now you take, and I can't do this in my head, but you take a 200-pound body and add it to a 20-ton plane. So you've got 20 tons plus 200. So what you've done is you dissipate that static charge on your body over the 20 tons on the plane. So, and it becomes insignificant. And then not only that, the plane is traveling through the air and it's creating a negative charge here and a positive charge on the back. So anyhow, it's so what it does, the main thing that grounding on a plane does is reduce static electricity. So a couple thousand, most people are running around, with EMF worried about, 2 volts of EMF charge on your body, which but static electricity, just walking across your living room, if you touch a doorknob and you get a spark, that's a 5,000 volt charge on your body. So these huge electrical charges like that do influence all of the electrical phenomena in the body. So so the benefit on a plane is to discharge that static electricity. When you get off the plane, you're going to feel better. You won't be as tired because static electricity also charges the lungs, the respiratory system, and the gastrointestinal. So it's really important to discharge that static electricity.
If I do understand correctly, it roughly is the same concept as grounding in a car, just grounding to just a larger mass that's conductive, right?
Yeah, the plane is a ground, the car, the automobile is probably 5 ton or 2 ton, whatever it is. So it's a huge ground plane compared to your body. So you're taking charge on your body and you're dispersing it over the universe of that grounded object or that object, and it reduces the charge on your body. So it's like grounding to the earth. The earth is infinitely large, your body's infinitely small. So when you touch it, there's not a chance that you can have charge on your body.
Drop in the ocean, exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then the last part of that question actually was touching on to see if you could use, say, the ground port of the electrical outlets that you find on a plane.
That I don't know for sure, depending on if it's grounded, it would be grounded to the chassis. It would be the same effect.
Absolutely. All right, and our next question here from Anne here on Zoom is asking if there is a volume or quality of earthing based on how much your body is touching the earth or a sleep mat.
Well, like I say, there's 2 different things that happen when you're grounded, and I've got to do a video on this one these days and demonstrate this. And I promise I will not do this in future. But anyhow, when you connect a ground plane, a mat or a bed pad to the earth, then it equalizes with the earth. It does have a flow of electrons that will balance out the same amount of electrons pro rata per square inch as the pad, as the earth. And when you touch it, then your body will absorb those electrons and it will, reduce inflammation in your body. Or it'll make what I should say is your body will equalize with the earth, electron-wise. Your body will become negative. Okay, but beyond that, the earth has its own electric field, like everybody in the EMFs talk about all the EMFs and so on. Well, the earth has its own electric field. So when you put a a Unimat on a desk and you plug it in, then the EMFs around you are going to be pushed away. But there's a field here that is, the Earth's field. And when you put a mattress cover on top of a bed and put it over the whole bed, you can go stand, 5, 6, 7 feet away. If you were measuring your body voltage, you would be able to have somebody plug in the sheet and you would see the voltage drop, even though you're 6 feet away from the grounded bed plane. So there's two things. One is the electrons, which reduces inflammation and helps to maintain the electrical stability of the body. And then beyond that, you have this resonating electric field that it's resonating at different frequencies at different times of the day. You have the Schumann resonance. That's all part of it. And anyhow, it's highest during the day and lowest at night. So your body and your circadian rhythms and your hormone cascades and all these things, when you are grounded, they all sync up to this. We saw that in the early cortisol study, which you can find on the Earthing Institute. So anyhow, when you sync up to that, there's just a dance going on between, the rhythms of the earth and everything that's going on in your body. And over millions of years or whatever the times, the body was always cued up to these signals, and they play a significant role in nightly hormone cascade, sleep, everything. So did I answer that question? Did I get lost?
Yeah, I think we definitely got to it. And I'm actually going to post here link to that article for the study, just with regards to that cortisol study there for anyone who would like to find that. And
there's a wonderful paper on the Earthing Institute too. It's about women, women's health and the rhythms of the earth and women. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it's one that Jim Oshman and I worked on for years. It was just Gaetan Chevalier put it up. Yeah.
And for those of you not familiar with the Earthing Institute, it's a fantastic resource for everything earthing, from conditions people have found help with, all the way to the various studies that have been done into earthing as well. So you can find them at earthinginstitute.net as well. Getting back to our questions here. This question is coming from YouTube, from our friend Charlene. Charlene is wondering if there's a place that you might recommend to buy grounding shoes or other grounding materials if you do not want to need to order online. So any kind of brick and mortar stores that we can recommend.
Well, I think Radio Shack, they don't have Radio Shack anymore. Home Depot, I guess, is where you would have to go. They would have wire. They would have copper screen. It has to be real copper, not coated color copper. Metal screen. They have metal insulation that's not metal, but it has an aluminum side, which would be conductive and also shielding. They have, I think they have conductive tapes. They do have conductive aluminum tape that you use to wrap around heating ducts, but there's an assortment of things depending on what you want to do. But what you need is a ground rod, a 4-foot ground rod, if you can get one. If you can't, then they have different kinds of metal rods of different caliber or different sizes. They have ground rod clamps that you can clamp to the ground rod, stick a wire in it and tighten it down. You can get wire any length that you want. I would say 18 gauge is probably 18 gauge stranded would be the best to work with for most people. I would highly recommend that it's coated with a rubber jacket rather than a what you would call a static drain wire. And then what you put on the other end of that, if you're going to put it in your bed, the only thing you could possibly do would be use probably screen or the aluminum duct tape. The duct tape will break up and it will ruin sheets, and it's not very nice. The problem you might have with the screen is it will eventually break up, and it can poke you a little bit at night. but you can keep buying new screen, or you just kind of have to go into Home Depot or Lowe's or anybody like that and just poke around until you find some conductive metal things. They even sell the meters that you can use to test the or the conductivity of your ground system. So you can just have a heyday at Home Depot.
Absolutely. All right, moving on here. We do have a question here from our friend Jennifer here on Zoom. Jennifer's letting us know she just had a holiday, actually got burnt pretty badly, which normally would be very painful, but for some reason has not been experiencing any of the usual pain or body shivers she normally would after a burn like that. Do you think that grounding has anything to do with this, as she's been grounding for about 10 months now?
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only that, first of all, when you go grounding, or when you go to the beach, if you're grounded on the sand, that's going to help. But if you've been grounding before, then your body kind of already has a ground charge or a certain amount of protection built in. But for sure, if you're grounded afterwards, if you have a burn, then it's going to reduce the pain almost instantly. In fact, we have seen and we know of people who have been burned badly, and normally they put ice and all that kind of stuff, but that really doesn't help. But they got immediately grounded, and just remarkable. It reduces the inflammation, which causes a lot of the skin loss and all those kind of things. But yes, grounding after a burn of any kind, whether it's a sunburn or any kind of a burn, ground yourself immediately thereafter, and you're going to see significant results.
Absolutely.
Or put your hand on the earth, or do whatever you have to do, but ground out that inflammation.
Definitely. All right, moving right on from there, let's go ahead and jump over to our viewers on Facebook again. So we do have from Scarlett letting us know since she's been using the earthing pads, she is actually sleeping longer without as many interruptions. Chronic pain has improved to the point of taking less medication, and her neuropathy in her feet has actually been improved as well. Looks like definitely a big success story there. Clint, I'm not sure if we have any other similar stories that you've heard over the years to that as well.
Well, we have a lot of stories like that, a huge amount of stories like that. And the benefit, grounding is, like we say, grounding is going to put the fire out, and it's going to help balance out your hormones and a lot of those things. But you always, and I always say this to people who have neuropathy and these kind of issues, is it's always best to take some time and look at what's causing your inflammation and your pain and problems. What's feeding the system? The grounding can help put it out. The immune system can do all these things, but sometimes we have to stop and analyze what's feeding the inflammation or the fire in our body, or what's firing our fight or flight system. Because people who have neuropathy and these kind of issues, they're to a large degree, they are living in a chronically elevated sympathetic state, meaning something is stressing the heck out of them. If I'm not right, holler at me.
All right. Our next question here we do have from Facebook as well. This is coming from Angela. And Angela is asking if we have to use a specific earthing bed mat, or actually if we have a specific earthing bed mat to sleep on, or can you use a universal mat for sleeping?
Yeah, we have, I think we have sleeping mats, mattress covers that are the size of every bed. And you can sleep directly on them, or you can put a sheet over them and sleep on the sheet. They work equally. Some people, if their health is really compromised, I highly recommend they sleep directly on it until they recover. But yes, we have something every size you need. If we don't have a size, let us know.
I think we do have everything from twin all the way up to Cal King, so
yeah,
have most of those bases covered.
Yes.
All right. And we do have a question from one of our anonymous viewers here on Zoom, asking in persons or people with peripheral neuropathy, knows that grounding helps to heal that, but their questions in particular would be to the effects of grounding through the feet. Would they be less when starting to improve over time as nerves repair? So I guess would it be expected to start out with a bit more slow improvement and have that increase over time? What would be typically the experience in that situation?
Are you talking about the grounding or the healing?
Regards to the healing, I guess,
Okay.
specifically with peripheral neuropathy there.
Okay. Normally what happens is as soon as first of all, there's a lot of damage and that's been going on for a long period of time. So there's a lot of recovery involved. So what happens, first of all, when you ground, especially the feet or the hands or the body, then what happens is you normalize the blood viscosity. Now the blood can get in and out of the capillaries a little better. And then you're going to start feeling as the healing or as it starts to heal, then you'll start feeling, a lot of people say it's kind of like pins and needles, but then that passes quickly. But there's a process, the healing process that goes on, and that would depend entirely on the amount of damage, the years or whatever. And so I would say that the best thing to do is just start and go with it and keep track of it and try to remember what it was when you started versus, as time goes on. And put a pain scale on it of 1 to 10 or something and just kind of work with it and find the things that are comfortable and get you the results that you need.
All right, our next question here is coming from over on YouTube. This question is from Julie. And Julie is asking if earthing has been shown to affect cancers in any way. Another really popular question that we get.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I have lots of stories I could tell, but you can't just come out and make a statement about this person's cancer went into remissions and this person's didn't and all that kind of stuff. You have to know, first of all, well, I think here's a way to start. Go to Google and look up and put in the name of your cancer and the name of inflammation that you're trying to research. And you'll find that there's always an inflammatory component. And and the number one protocol and that I'm familiar with people who deal with cancer for the medical community, the number one protocol is reduce inflammation. Okay, so first of all, grounding is about one thing. It's about reducing inflammation, but it's also about the resonating frequencies of the earth and synchronizing your hormone rhythms and circadian rhythms and the hormone cascades and so on. So if I had cancer, the number one thing, based on all the experience I know, based on everything that I've learned over the years, and I've worked with many large amounts of people, is I would, well, first of all, you have to know you can't have cancer unless you have a pocket of inflammation, unless you have inflammation building in your body. For instance, an example is in the animal world, cancer is a rarity. The large animals, the moose, the deer, the elk, the coyotes, the wolves, the rabbits. I mean, they're just almost non-existent. Cancer usually only shows up when humans have contaminated the environment. But on the other hand, animals who live indoors with their owners, like pets, dogs, cats, and so on, 50% of them die from cancer. So, and in the wild, they don't. So what the difference between the two of them, it can be sure food, water, and all kinds of things. But the main difference is animals in the wild are grounded 24/7. You cannot have inflammation in your body when you're grounded 24/7. It's not possible. You can have an inflammation cascade or an oxidative burst, which a lot of people misconstrue that as being inflammation. It's not. It's just the oxidative burst that neutralizes a pathogen or a damaged cell or those kind of things. It's when it becomes a chronic fire or a chronic inflammation. Then that's something different. That means you don't have enough electrons to reduce those excess reactive oxygen species. So they end up starting a fire and creating inflammation in the body. And it shows up as anxiety, irritability, all those kind of things, pain, and then eventually health disorder. But anyhow, with cancer, there is, first of all, a pocket of inflammation. There's some inflammation in the body, a large amount of inflammation. And then there's a group of cells somewhere inside that pocket of inflammation that lose contact with the rest of the cells in the adjacent area. And so they begin to de-differentiate, and they lose connection with and communication with the adjacent cells. And then they set up and they form a cancer. And it's funny that there's only a few dozen names for these cancers, but they're all routine. So, but anyhow, if you reduce the inflammation that is surrounding that area, if you ground yourself and put out the fire of that inflammation, because the immune system is sitting there trying to get at the cancer, but it can't because it's got this wall of inflammation. So if you can reduce the inflammation, then the immune system can do what it normally does to return the body to normal. And that means to remove and prevent cancer and all these things. So I don't know if I made the point there, but yes, grounding impacts the body universally and systemically. It's all when the human body is one thing. If it has a cancer, if it has this disease, if it has that disease, the whole body is compromised. So what you need to do is to ground out the inflammation, ground out the mind, whatever's feeding a lot of this inflammation, and then start, get back to nature and get back to get connected to the earth and start dancing with nature, and it will restore your health. I mean, the immune system will restore your health if you can remove the stress that's interfering with your immune system's ability to do what it normally does, like it does in the animal world, in nature.
That was, I think, really valuable information there. The distinction between those oxidative bursts and chronic inflammation as well, I think, clears a lot of that up as well. So.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Our next question here we're going to take from Cindy. And Cindy wanted to let us know she has a paralyzed diaphragm and is currently on oxygen and a BiPAP and sleeps on a grounding mat. I was wondering if using grounding patches also directly on the diaphragm would be beneficial in tandem with that, or would the grounding pad, I guess the full size, so it sounds like it is one of the sleep mats or mattress covers, be enough?
I would use, in that situation, I would use all the grounding I could. I would use patches for sure on the diaphragm. I would for sure do that. And then, I would just get as grounded as I can and stay there. But for sure, the patches.
Definitely. We do have our next question here. It's coming from Britta here on Zoom. And Britta is letting us know she did have dental work back in 2014 to fill a gap in her gum in between two molars. Has been grounding since about mid-April with a sleep mat and a pillow cover as well overnight. And also sitting on a universal mat during the day. So definitely pretty regular grounding there. But over the last 4 weeks, has been experiencing a bit of dental pain in that area and is wondering if her body could be attempting to heal that area naturally and is now rejecting whatever material might have been used to fill the gap, if that's a possibility.
I don't have an answer for that, but usually if you have pain, first of all, you have to know that if you have pain, you have inflammation first, because pain is a result of inflammation. So there's some inflammation going on there, and it could be from any one of a half a dozen sources. I would best go to the dentist and find out and make sure there's no inflammatory gum disease or anything underneath in the area, and just get some expert advice and get a little X-ray and find out and get on it. If they will find something because there's inflammation and they can clean it up and get you back to normal.
Absolutely. Thanks. And now our friend Zachary from YouTube is asking if we have any experience with people who have found benefits from grounding if they have tinnitus, any improvement in that condition?
Yeah, we have. In fact, the cortisol study we talked about early, and the first study we ever did, people mentioned to us that grounding improved the tinnitus. And we didn't really ever study that by itself. But what we did learn is that people who have tinnitus are generally living in an elevated sympathetic state. Their fight or flight is elevated. and there's tension in their body, and the tension ends up sometimes in a jaw and or wherever, and it's affecting the ear and so on. That's one of the things we kind of know. But I don't really, but we do have, you can go to the Earthing Institute, type in tinnitus, and you'll find stories of a handful of people who have written to us and explained what they experienced.
Absolutely.
Quite beneficial.
Yeah, so from the homepage of the Earthing Institute website, you can go to the top bar, success stories and testimonials of earthing benefits A to Z. You can find all of the different conditions people have found benefits from earthing with as well. So definitely another great resource to use. And in the meantime, we do have our friend Deborah on YouTube coming at us from the UK, asking if earthing products have any effect on psoriasis from our experiences.
Yes, psoriasis is an inflammation-related health disorder. So you have to ground out your body and stay grounded, and your immune system should heal that up. But on the other hand, if it's there's nothing wrong with going to the doc and finding out what extent, but and they do have certain things that will help, but grounding ultimately will reduce the inflammation in your body. Then your immune system can take charge and take care of it from there.
Absolutely. All right, our next question here we'll take from our friend Crispin here from Zoom. Letting us know they live up pretty high elevation, about 7,000 feet up in Tahoe, where they do say the air is exceptionally dry.
Yep.
So they're saying perspiration is a little rare, and the locals all pretty much have pretty dry skin, and wondering if you have, I guess, any suggestions, or wondering if you would be able to connect through a cotton sheet to mattress cover, or would there be more issues with that? And I guess the best way to confirm if it would work or not.
Well, the best way to confirm it is, do you sleep better and do you have less pain? It's like dry skin is definitely an issue. I mean, we have some people that's, when we try to test the conductivity or the skin resistance, their skin is so dry that there's just no conductivity there. So, yeah, I would probably be sleeping directly on the mat. I don't know. I mean, you just have to test it. But extremely dry, environments are, it's going to be a little more challenging.
Absolutely. There's typically a lot of nuance that comes with each different situation there.
Yes.
So absolutely, trialing just a lot of different things can help quite a bit.
Put a humidifier in the room, maybe, because that way all of the cotton in the room will hold the humidity that's in the air.
Great amount of help there. Absolutely. Our next question here coming from Casey. Casey's asking if swimming in water with a natural bottom, as far as the lake or the ocean, for example, compared to a swimming pool, which is either concrete, plastic, what would be the earthing effects and how would they differ from those different bodies of water?
Well, I don't think there would be a lot of difference. If it's a plastic pool and it has no contact, no ground contact, then it, there would be a difference. But most all normal swimming pools, even though they have plastic and gunite type walls and so on, and coatings, they still are conductive. I mean, because of the pumps where the water goes through, there's metal here and there are ports somewhere in the pool are ground ports, whether it's the drains or something. But anyhow, I think there's ground there. There has to be ground there to protect for lighting and things of that nature. So I think that generally speaking, there would be plenty of ground in a normal swimming pool. The I just, salt water would be, more grounding, of course. The water itself is not conductive. It's the amount of mineral that's in the water that makes it conductive. So I would think that there would be very little difference. If I were to measure it, it would be 20 millivolts negative in the pool as it would the beach.
Absolutely. All right. And our next question here is coming from Christine. Christine is asking, again, really popular question, just what is the recommended amount of time that a person should ground for each day?
Well, it's the same thing. I always say any amount of grounding is better than no grounding. So if it's just 15 minutes, do it. But it depends on your health. And if you have pain in your body, if you have inflammation in your body, then you want to ground until the pain stops. You have to put the fire out. And as soon as the pain comes back, then you reground, or your fatigue comes way up. You have to reground, because your blood is getting thick and sticky. It's not getting into the capillaries and oxygenating the tissue, including brain. Ideally, it's like animals in the wild. They're grounded 24/7. They don't have any of the modern health disorders that we all have, and that's like cardiovascular disease, lupus, MS, diabetes. They have none of these. So these are all inflammation-related health disorders. So if you can ground 24/7 in your living environment, sleep grounded, have grounded flooring, grounded whatever, then you can be pretty healthy relative to the animal world. So any amount of, if your health is compromised, I have to give you a reference here. For instance, like ladies who have MS, when we first started grounding them, we would ground them at night, and they would get 8-10 hours of sleep, and they would have significant amounts of pain reduction. Wake up in the morning, be happy and feeling good. And then about 10 o'clock, they would start to go downhill. The pain would start to come back. And then as the day went back, they became more fatigued and so on. So then eventually we started grounding them 16 hours a day. We found that 12 hours isn't enough. They have to be grounded more than they are ungrounded in order to keep the fire at bay. And so it's all relative to your lifestyle and your environment, your mental and physical health, and a lot of things. But just try to, first of all, just go out and get grounded and see how it feels. Keep doing it until you find that comfort level. Some people moved to the woods and never came back.
Sometimes it gets a little tempting. So.
Yes. Yes.
Great. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next question here. This comes from Kay over on YouTube. It's letting us know that she has 2 grounding beds for her 14-year-old poodle who has congestive heart failure. But since grounding, she's letting us know that her coughing is pretty much all but stopped, and was wondering if it would be okay to put a cotton fabric over the bed as well.
Well, you can try that, but is this? Are we talking about a pet bed or a dog bed?
I believe it would be a pet bed, correct?
Yeah. I would. That product was designed not to have anything over it, so that you could wipe it and clean it up and whatever. But I think if it were like a sheeting material, very thin. But it's interesting, when we ground dogs, their paws. They don't feel like it, but they do. They are conductive, but the rest of their body is somewhat insulated. And in order to test whether or not they're grounded, you have to touch their nose or their tongue with the tester, or and so on. I understand what's going on with the dog and how grounding is helping him, so I'd keep him grounded as long as I could, as well grounded as I possibly could. But you can experiment.
Definitely. That always is the most important right there as well. And we do have just a couple shout outs here with some success stories from all over here. So we do have from YouTube, Earthing has changed my life. We are electric and meant to connect to Mother Earth. We do have from Totally T saying that they're halfway through the book. Wanted to just again say just how well written it was and how packed with information that Earthing book is as well. And then also we do have a comment here from Facebook from our friend Gwen, letting us know as an LMT that she does offer grounded massage via patch, and notice that her clients tend to relax much more quickly and a lot more deeply during the massage as well. So just a lot of thanks for the success stories coming out as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we have about 7,000-8,000 body workers, massage therapists and body workers that have grounded tables.
Right. So next up, we do have our friend Jennifer here on Zoom is letting us know that she has actually suffered from anxiety when taking flights for the past 20 years, got on a plane last week and actually did not experience any anxiety whatsoever. Couldn't really believe how calm she was, and asking if you do think grounding might have some part to play in that, as this would be the first flight since she began to ground on a daily basis.
Right. I'm sure it has a lot to do with it, because when you when you get grounded and you reduce the inflammation in your body, then healing, the immune system, is repairing and restoring the body, and so you're just healthier. But you also, when you sleep grounded, you maintain that charge for a little while. You don't, when you have inflammation, I mean, it's a fire, but when you put it out, then the immune system can go to work and heal and maintain. And so the inflammation is gone, provided you stay grounded long enough that the immune system can um, repair the damage and so on. So absolutely.
All right. We have our next question here is coming from Yvonne over on YouTube and asking if we have an experience with earthing helping with gout. And if you are experiencing that, what might be the best product to use for that condition?
Well, gout is usually in the feet or in the legs. So I mean, yeah, it definitely, it works miracles for gout. Yeah, especially the patches to get it under control, especially when it's flaring, because it's a flaring autoimmune disease. But then after that, they need to get grounded and stay grounded. I cannot tell you the amount of men, and I hate to say this out loud, but I can't tell you the amount of men that have gout that started grounding and got really good results. And then they, all of a sudden, they stopped grounding for some reason. Then a year later, they called up, I got my gout back again. I said, what happened to your grounding? I don't know. I lost it. I mean, but it's, yeah, it's very beneficial for gout. Yes.
Absolutely. All right. And then actually moving on to a question that we received through Facebook from Stephen. Stephen was wondering if it is possible to get parasites from going barefoot outdoors.
Well, I would imagine that you would be able to get parasites depending on what's going on and what the situation is. I don't know. I would imagine that all of the animals who live in the, nature, that live grounded on the earth, that they're all exposed to parasites. I don't know how that all plays out with the immune system, because I just don't have any specialty in that effect. But parasites are, I think we're talking about ringworms or things of that nature. They are out there, and I don't know whether that is seasonal. I don't know whether it has to do with the health of the environment, whether it's stale water, stale, like we have a lot of molds and a lot of with the artificial yards and golf courses and just a lot of things. I really can't answer it, but it is an issue. But if they were the ultimate issue, then none of us would ever be here, because we all were barefoot for millions of years.
We do have our next question here from Lori. And Lori was actually asking what your thoughts are on grounding in Lyme disease, as well as other bacterial factors. But I know Lyme is one of the big ones that we deal with there.
Yeah, we have a large following of ladies with Lyme's. And we used to, get a little more focused on it. And then Alex, when some of them get well, then they go on. And so you lose your contacts. But anyhow, Lyme's disease, I followed it for years, and it's, coming from a deer tick, it's basically you end up with spirochetes and different little critters in your extremities, and and there's whatever all the things are that are related to Lyme's. But what we have found is when you start grounding with Lyme's, that what happens is you normalize your blood viscosity. The blood becomes more negative, and the blood naturally thins. And so now the blood repels each other, and then they can get into the capillaries and oxygenate the tissue. And in doing that process, oftentimes there's a large die-off of spirochetes or whatever, and they flood the system and you feel like you have the flu. And sometimes it can be extreme. So what we have found is a lot of people with Lyme's is to start slow. There's a book, there's a chapter on it in the Earthing book. There's lots of stories on the Earthing Institute. I would highly recommend that anybody that is interested in, that has Lyme's, interested in grounding, go to the Earthing Institute and type in Lyme's. And, but yeah, it's quite beneficial. It's just, it's quite beneficial. It's just a little process there to get through it, because it's really a life-changing experience.
Absolutely. All right. And we do have another question here. This is actually coming from Marilyn. So I think we did touch on this a bit earlier, and I guess looking for a little more depth on this, wondering if sleeping grounded on the universal mat or any of our other mats would be as effective as just having your feet directly on the ground.
Well, I don't think there's anything probably that is going to be better than, you know, 100 or 200 pound body standing barefoot on the earth, because you have a very solid connection. And not only that, the atmosphere is positive, the earth is negative, so your body floods with negative, and then the negative charge is being pulled up through you. And so that's, you know, that's the ultimate. And you also, if it's daylight, you get sunshine, and that has a significant impact on your health also. And today we live in houses that are insulated from the earth and block the sun. So, and we're all struggling and suffering. So anyhow, the grounding mats, as long as you're going to live in a home and you have health challenges, inflammation-related health challenges, then I think you'll find that grounding is quite beneficial, but it will never be as good as standing barefoot outdoors on the earth.
All right, and we do have another question.
But you will have the same effect. The body will become negative. It'll put out the fire of inflammation, and then the immune system can go back to work on other things. It's just, you know, I'm a naturalist by nature. So anything you can do naturally, that's what you should do. But what we do is we mimic nature. We create a path with these products between the earth and your body, so that your body can be, we replicate you standing barefoot on the earth by doing that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, and we have our next question here coming in through Zoom. This is from John D, asking if we have experience with earthing helping eczema at all.
Yeah, eczema is an inflammation-related health disorder. You have inflammation in your body, and it chose to manifest in this fashion. So I think that if you can get the inflammation under control, first of all, put the fire out. There may be dietary issues. There may be emotional stresses. There may be other things that are contributing to this also. But for sure, get the inflammation out of your body and try to eat foods and stuff that are conducive. You probably want to back off breads and sugars and things like that, but just to calm everything down. But yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. And then our next question here coming from Facebook, this would be from Lorraine. Lorraine is actually asking if earthing has been shown to lower cholesterol levels, or at least affect them in a positive way through grounding.
Well, I don't think we've ever done a study per se. We may have. Yes, we have. Howard Elkin's study on hypertension that's posted at the Earthing Institute. He may have recorded some of that information in that study, but that's a published study, case study. Cholesterol is, if you have lots of inflammation in your body, your cholesterol is probably going to be higher than otherwise. Diabetes, all of those things. You know, everything is systemic. You know, so if your health is compromised, you know, I need to back up and just say, health in nature, I mean, is the body's most natural state, and you see that in the animal world. You see it in you know, everywhere you go in the animal world, you see health. So humans are just the opposite. Wherever you go, there you see unhealth. And so the difference between the animal world and us is we're doing something that's interfering with our immune system's ability to maintain health. Otherwise, the immune system only knows to do one thing, is to every day, every night, restore health and return your body to health. So something is interfering with the immune system's ability to maintain health. So no matter what the health issue is, if you have inflammation in your body, what happens is you're compromising your immune system, because now it's trying to put out a fire that it itself is creating because it's not grounded. And as it, creates an oxidative burst in the remaining radicals that are left over because of a lack of ground in the body, those radicals go on and damage adjacent cells. And that's how the fire gets going, and that's how it gets out of control. And the health disorders that show up will manifest differently in different people based on their lifestyle, their environment, their emotional health, and all of these things. Some people will show up as cardiovascular disease because of their diet. Some people will show up as lupus because of their whatever. I don't want to go into all of those, but anyhow, so the main thing about all of this is we have to return our body to its most natural state. That means we have to be grounded. We need some sunshine. We need good water. We need some good food, and just move around a little bit, and you'll have health.
Absolutely. Right. And moving on from there, we do have a question from our friend Donna. Donna's wondering if it's possible that certain bodies, does state that she's 92 at the moment, take a while to reap all the benefits the grounding promises. They're currently using a grounding mat, which I'm assuming would be the uni mat.
Help me understand that a little better.
Yes, I was just wondering if it, can take a little while for certain people to start experiencing the benefits of grounding. And does mention in there she is 92 as well.
Okay. With the patches, I would say that they would be significantly similar to any age. But yes, as you get older, it does take longer to heal and repair. And the body entropy is real. We are going to live so long, depending on how much inflammation and stress we have in our bodies throughout our life. That'll speed it up or slow it down. And but yes, the older we get, we lose a lot of the resources. But still, the main thing of aging, advanced aging, is from inflammation or oxidative stress. So anything you can do to ground out any kind of stress, whatever it is, to have lived to be 92, you're doing a pretty good job so far, and stay with it. But to reduce any inflammation in your body, or any pain, which is inflammation, reduce the inflammation in your body, and then your body's going to carry on and until you wear it out.
And we do have a message here from our friend Casey, who wanted to share with us that without too many details, she does have severe edema issues actually in her left calf. And
yes,
given that injuries as minor as scratches can take years to fully heal, without exaggeration, she does mention. Does also add that she accidentally scratched herself there recently, cleaned it up and put on a bandage, took off the bandage for, just to air it out, and went to bed and put 3 patches on her calf, not for the scratch, but for the edema that she's experiencing. And next morning, she did say her scratch had completely scabbed over, which is kind of a miracle in comparison to what has happened before. So Casey, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yes. And the edema should be coming down quite rapidly.
All right. We do have a question here from our friends on Facebook. So this is coming from Lorraine, asking if grounding can restore pulmonary fibrosis, or I'm assuming would be able to aid with that condition there.
If it's an inflammation-related health disorder, grounding will help.
Absolutely.
So go to Google and see what the inflammation components are, and take it from there.
Definitely. Then following that up with a question here from Gail on Facebook. Gail's wondering if grounding helps with diabetes, asking why doctors tell you not to go barefoot with the condition.
Well, the reason they tell you not to go barefoot is because if you have diabetes and you cut your foot or you damage or do harm, then it's going to be very difficult to heal because you don't have the healing capacity that you would normally have. So diabetes is an inflammation-related health disorder. You can go to Google and pull it up and you can read all about it. And for years and years, it was because of this, it was because of that. But it's really, you have chronic inflammation in your body and it ends up manifesting as diabetes. And it also leads, it's exacerbated by, various other things also. But the main thing you have to do with diabetes is you have to reduce the inflammation, get grounded, stay grounded as much as you possibly can. And that's not grounding for a few hours. You need to get grounded and stay grounded until you start getting it under control. And but there's other lifestyle changes that are obvious that you may have to make with diabetes, because you always have to look at, grounding will reduce the inflammation. There's no question about it, and I guarantee it. But the problem is what's feeding the inflammation, what's causing the inflammation, what's creating the diabetes, something you are doing, something that you're, it's a lifestyle or an environment or something you're doing is contributing to feeding that fire in the first place. So you got to put the inflammation, you can get grounded and it'll keep it at bay and keep it balanced. But in order to totally recover, you have to change something. And there's plenty of public information out there on the simple things that are required for the body to recover fully from diabetes.
And moving on from there, it looks like we do have another question from YouTube here. This is coming from Rosie. Rosie is actually commenting on the mention that minerals would be needed in order for water to be conducted, just with that electrolytic effect. Yep. Asking, in a dry climate, will misting a bed sheet over a grounded pad with some tap water have enough minerals to improve conductivity?
Well, the minerals are already there in the cotton, and there's plenty of conductive already there. But yes, it will certainly help, yes.
Absolutely. All right, moving on from there. We have our friend Russell. I know we've been talking about neuropathy. A few questions here. Russell was actually asking what would be the most recommended product for someone who does have neuropathy to treat that.
I presume if it's on the feet, for sure, just the patch kits comes with 2 wires, 1 for each foot. And if you have to keep them on all night, put a sock over it. Once you put the patch on K1, connect the wires to them, connect them to the outlet, and generally they'll stay on. But if you need to, put a sock over them. But that's where I would start. And for sure, if you have a half bed pad or a mattress cover, for sure, sleep directly on it. At least your feet and hands. But neuropathy is usually in the fingers and the extremities. So, but just start. Just start. If you can't do it, just patch the hands. Whatever you have to do, just get started. Because remember that even if you patch 2 feet or 2 hands is what I recommend. But again, the blood is going to circulate in your body once a minute. So over some period of minutes, you're going to have several cycles of blood, and as the blood comes by and it picks up electrons and becomes more, reduces the viscosity. So then there's more electrons can get in there and reduce the inflammation and start to heal and repair. And that's when you'll feel a little bit of the tingling and pins and needles sometimes from grounding, but that's a healing response.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Moving on from there, we do have one of our viewers. I'm not sure if we do have actually any kind of research or studies or any stories about this, but asking if earthing can potentially help with a yeast infection. That is a common condition.
We have some knowledge of this. I remember we were down in Encinitas, California one time, and we had a group of about 30 people that were doing kind of a seminar. And one of the doctors there was doing dark field blood, where they would draw a little blood from your finger, and you could see the blood cells and the clumping and the rouleau formation, and you could see the I don't remember the names of all of this, but the yeast that was in the blood. And so anyhow, the doctor called this other person that was with me over and said, "Let me test yours," because she had been grounded, and just to show that you'll have, but neither that person or myself had any of the yeast that were in the blood. And we have had several people over the years report, and again, I don't know all the names, I don't remember the names anymore, of significant reductions in yeast in various forms and various issues that are going on in the body. So yes, because what's happening there is your pH is off. That's the only way a yeast can come about, or your electrons are off, you have an imbalance. And as soon as you balance that out, then it puts the inflammation out and cleans all that up. So it's really a pH problem, and it's a ground problem. pH is ground, it's base. I mean, you have a balance there that is going to reduce acid or prevent alkaline, to maintain ground, to maintain homeostasis, for dealing with all of these things. So yeah, you'll have a significant benefit with yeast.
Absolutely. Moving on to our next question. This is coming in from Christine here on Zoom. So Christine is asking, just because they're actually about to take off on a sailboat to travel, and wondering the best way to stay grounded out on the open water, if that's possible.
Don't know without, I mean, most boats are different, but if it's a large enough boat, for sure there's ground on the boat somewhere, but I don't know. So you might have to, find a bolt that's in the water that's going through the hull somewhere, or through the transom, or, I don't really know. Every boat is different, but most boats that are plastic or wood, and then they have lots of paint and varnish on the wood and so on. So it's all insulated. Most everything on a boat is insulated. So do get a fair amount of swimming in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
And sunshine. Yeah.
And our next question, or actually we do have a couple questions here from Robbie over on Zoom. So first asking if grounding can help with hypothyroid, and would the patch be the best? And then also, is a concrete patio a good place for natural grounding?
Yeah, concrete patio is a great place. And to make it even greater, just take the hose out and spray it down a little bit so that it's moist. You don't need to leave the water running, just spray it down a little bit. Hypothyroid. We have, one of the number one things that we hear about is, 50% of the people out there are on thyroid meds of one kind or another. But one of the number one things that we hear is that grounding does help restore thyroid balances in the hormone markers.
Perfect. Going over here, we do have some more questions from our viewers on YouTube. So this one is asking, since we are conductive, do we transfer electrons person to person through touch? And was thinking about caregivers and their patients. So for example, can patients, quote unquote, drain ungrounded caregivers?
Well, that's part of the issue with what we were doing in the bodywork industry. We grounded the tables, or made mats they put on the tables, so that when somebody comes in to have a bodywork session, they're coming in because they're full of pain, stress, and inflammation. So they get on the table and the body worker goes over and starts to work. As soon as they touch them, then they're going to start giving up some of their electrons to the client. So the client's going to feel better, and the caregiver is going to feel not as good. So yes, the body is conductive, and when two people touch, You are going to exchange energy without question. You're going to have close coupling, first of all, and then if there's physical touch, then there's going to be an electron exchange. It's just going to balance out. You're going to ground each other out so you're both equal. If one person has 1,000 free electrons, one person has 500. When they get together, then each one of them are going to end up with 750, theoretically. So, but yes, the bodies are conductive.
Absolutely. And then another question coming in from Raul from YouTube. Raul's asking, is it true that the higher that you live in a building, the worse your body will get? Will his body voltage get higher, or would his body get higher voltage if he lives higher up in a tall building?
If you, it's like if you're standing on the earth, there's a 300 volt difference in potential between your toes and your head. And if you go up, like 15 feet, then it's going to be something greater. And if you go up, it's going to be greater and greater and greater. And so what this is really all about is, it's kind of hard to explain without a drawing, but negative electrons repel each other. They push each other away. It's like the blood viscosity. Because their blood cells are more negative, now they repel each other, and so now the blood is thinner. They're not stuck together. So when you're standing barefoot on the earth, then everything in your body is at equal potential with the earth, period. You have the same amount of electrons per square inch as the earth itself. Okay, so now as soon as you put a pair of shoes on, then what happens is all of the free electrons in your body are going to be pushed by the free electrons on the earth to the top of your body, to the top of your, to the upper part of your body. So that's, and you're going to be more positive in the legs and the lower extremities, and more negative in the upper extremities. So the further you get away from the earth, that phenomena still goes on, because you have the atmosphere pulling electrons to the top, and then you have the earth pushing them. Now, this is, electrical phenomena. I don't know that anybody would ever want to know this, but it is a problem. It is part of the problem. It's like they did a study back in Iowa, the University of Iowa, I think, where they found that there was a 50% increase in strokes of people who sleep in second-story bedrooms. Now, you'd think that people going up and downstairs, that they would be getting more exercise, but that's not the issue. The issue is that there's this phenomena that the further you are away from the earth, that and you're breathing oxygen, and so you're giving up electrons, and you have metabolic processes going on. So we are creatures of the earth, and we have moved ourselves up, and it's not all good. Now, on the other hand, you have to realize in a lot of buildings, they are made of concrete and steel, and they are grounded, so they're at equal potential with the earth. So when you connect to some of these buildings, it's just like being on the earth in a high rise. The ones that are the problem are second-story homes upstairs. Third stories, I hate to say this because I know there are people living out there in third stories when I say this, but in the early days, we used to call, first floor, where people were pretty healthy. Second floor, their health was, somewhat less healthy. But people who lived in third floor, we used to call them death row because they were the sickest. Now, and I shouldn't say that, but in all seriousness, these were wood frame buildings. These were not concrete buildings. If they're in a concrete or a stone building with rebar and all those things, they're earth. That is earth. So you're kind of living in a cave sometimes. But there are certain of these three-story apartment complexes. The electric fields are extremely high, but most of all, the problem is you have no ground source in the environmental infrastructure. So your electrons are being pushed to an extreme level, and there's an imbalance in the distribution of charge in your body.
Absolutely.
I don't know if anybody's how people are going to take that comment, but
Well, I feel like the more that we can inform and educate ourselves is always going to be for the best.
Yeah, there is information on that study, I believe, at the Earthing Institute. If not, Gaetan Chevalier can produce information on it.
Absolutely. All right, we do have actually a great question here from YouTube. I think can really clarify a lot of things here. We have questions from the user 15 minutes asking, using grounding mat for a few months now, along with a few products in the grounding patches. They were wondering if it's possible to need a higher voltage in the mat to experience a deeper effect. So I think definitely a little clarification about how voltage is involved with grounding. Information along that line.
Well, if you're physically connected to the earth, then you're going to equalize with the earth. There's no amount greater that's going to really produce any greater effect, because you have metabolic processes. You have basically, you just need to flood the body with free electron, maintain the body at grounded at earth potential, and then it's all natural. It's all part of nature. It's automatic. If you need more, if you are not recovering, then that means you need to spend more time grounding, not more grounding in a shorter period of time. That's what I would offer. Eating better food, because you get electrons that way also. Walking, getting some sunshine and some fresh air, those things also contribute electrons. But I'll stop.
All right, we do have another question here from Zoom. This is a question from Randall, where Randall's actually asking if there are any studies or information that we have on dementia and grounding.
Well, I'll share what I can. I'll use an example. It's like, we have worked with a lot of people with Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever name might want to be on it. And the only thing I can say is we know for sure that grounding, that these are inflammation-related health disorders. There's inflammation in the brain, inflammation in the body, and it's oxidizing brain tissue, or it can be the tangles, it can be any one thing, one or another, but you have inflammation in the body. And so what we have found is, if you ground people who have dementia, then it will slow down, it will stop or slow down the process. And depending on where the dementia is, whether it'll be benefit, whether they can recover from that, that's another issue. But it's like ladies with MS. And this, I think, it's similar because it's inflammation oxidizing the myelin sheath, and so as it does, the nerves are exposed, and it's very painful, and it's very it's a terrible health disorder. But anyhow, when you get grounded and you put the fire out, the pain, there's a lot of pain there, and it will stay there you won't get the hot burning pain anymore, but you'll still have all these issues. And if you get any ungrounded for any period of time, some of the pain will come back. But what happens is, as soon as that lady is grounded and stays grounded, the MS stops, because the MS is the immune system eating up the myelin sheath. But as soon as you stop that process, then the MS is at bay. It's stopped. It's gone. And then the body can maintain, or the immune system can start repairing and recovering and start healing. And I've seen people recover dramatically with MS, and I have seen some people who they got better, but they never really recovered beyond where they were. So it would depend on the stage of where the people are. But grounding is for sure going to help. But there are lots of other things there too. It's food, it's sunlight, it's exercise, it's water, it's good mental state, being happy.
I think we do only have time for just a couple more questions here. So we'll move on to another question that we do have from YouTube. So we do have a question here. This is coming from Outlaw, asking, what do you think about ground earth magnet generators? I'm not too familiar myself with those. But.
Ground earth generators.
Ground earth
Yeah.
magnets. Yeah.
Well, there are. I would need more information to answer that question.
Absolutely. Right. And then we do have another question here from Gemma. I think we actually did touch on this a little bit, but wondering, has neuropathic pain helped at all using grounding? Her brother has had 5 bypass surgeries and has technically died 3 times and is in constant pain. So asking if grounding will be helpful for that specific situation there.
You used to get grounded and stay grounded, period.
Absolutely.
Pain will go away.
All right, so very last question. We do have a question from Lori from Facebook asking if you recommend grounding pillowcases for any kind of issues you're trying to get relief for in the head or the brain.
Well, the pillows are, a lot of people like the pillow because of certain issues. And again, that's personal choice in many cases. The thing I will say that if you have issues anywhere in your body, if everything in the body is systemic, the body is one organism. And if you have a problem here, you really have a problem everywhere. And the body will try to cope with and miraculously continue on and try to get to 93 years of age. But so if you have any kind of an issue anywhere, what you need to do is look at the body as a whole. And it has to do with, first of all, reduce inflammation. That's what grounding will do. It will help with. You need some sunshine. You need your vitamin D. You've got to have that one. And you need to eat healthy food. Avoid eating foods that are not good for you or not contributing to nutrition and health. And, develop a good universe of family and friends and try to reduce stress and inflammation in or stress and, fight or flight and all those kind of issues in your life. And just try to start backing up and finding your happy point or your place in nature, and your body will heal up. You just have to remove those things that are causing these problems. But yes, the pillow is a good thing to have. Yes, you can lay on the pillow, you can sleep on it, you can use it for a dog bed. You can use it for anything. It's a great product to have in the home.
Absolutely. All right, we'll finish up with our last question here. It's coming from Anna. This is from YouTube. So Anna is letting us know that she actually does not have any cartilage in her right knee any longer. It's all gone, but she sleeps grounded and actually does not have any knee pain.
Yep.
But any advice on kind of improving the situation with her knee, or if there might be any kind of information out there, I guess, with that cartilage situation as it relates to earthing?
Yeah, we do know. I mean, when I started this grounding, people always said, well, cartilage never grows back, and so on. We have found that's not true. Cartilage does grow back. Now, it would depend on the amount of damage that was done, the extent of the structure, and so on. But the main thing is to keep the inflammation down, keep the pain, the inflammation, no pain, and then the body will find some way to cope with that. And whether it builds up cartilage or whether it builds up callus material of some kind, stay with it.
Absolutely. All right, I think that does just about wrap up our time for questions today. I did want to say, Clint, again, thank you so much for joining us and for all the wonderful information in today's Q&A. And thank you all for submitting your questions and deciding to educate yourselves a little bit more about the benefits of grounding. If you have not done so already, we do highly recommend that you follow us on social media and also subscribe to our newsletter just to make sure you're in the loop regarding any of our upcoming sales, webinars, new product announcements, and a lot more as well. And if you're looking for some video information, our YouTube channel is a great resource also. I do want to say one more thank you to Clint, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
Clint,
appreciate being here. Appreciate the interest of everybody. Hope I can be of service. Take care. Bye.
Absolutely.